Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Edrunners HQ and our Cyberpunk RED talk show, Night City Sofa. I am Jesper here with Games End. Hello, buddy.
Hey, Jess, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well.
During tonight's episode, Night City Sofa, we are continuing our look into Night City 2045 as we look at the mainland. We are pleased to welcome to the show Linda Evans to speak with us tonight. Hello, Linda.
Hi.
It's so great to have you here.
Yes. Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
Yes, happy to be here. I'm alright. Looking forward to nattering about some of the stuff I've done.
And we're so excited.
Some of it's quite good, I think.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's very good. We're very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, happy to have it.
Now, you've done a lot of writing for Cyberpunk RED, and you've been in the TTRPG space for a lot. For those who may not know who you are or don't recognize your name, which is crazy, especially on this show, considering how much we praise a lot of your stuff, can you please tell the audience about yourself, your work, where people can find you?
Okay, yep. I am a freelance writer. I've been freelancing for Talsorian since 2020, disturbingly. A couple of years before that, basically they tripped over me when I did an actual play for Witcher. I think we had the first Witcher actual play out. So I wrote the scenario for that. And I think we did the first Jumpstart Kit AP. I think we did it actually on release day.
Wow.
And basically Jay Gray tripped over one of my streams. We got chatting, and down the line, after running Falkenstein as a sponsored stream, he basically said, "Would you like the books if you would run an AP and actual play?" And I went, "Yes, please." So I've been doing that for Artel, actually writing for Artel as a freelancer since 2020. I also am an editor. I write on my own account as well. I'm currently partway through a murder mystery game, currently working on the title Bucolic British Murder Mysteries, which is an RPG. It was initially based on things like Midsummer Murder and Miss Marple. In between projects, I'm working on that, which I hope, given it's a bespoke system, I'm hoping will work okay. But yeah, it's a system based around investigation, and it's supposed to be a proper RPG, not just sort of individual one-shots and such, but it gives you lots of archetypes to play with for your detectives and reasons for murders and reasons for mysteries and things like that, and victims. It's a lot of fun. I do like the genre. So yes, you can find me if you are interested in listening or watching. I do video game streams. I would say I'm a nice organised video game streamer. I play things I'm interested in. Quite often investigative, horror, but also I'll play sci-fi, point and click. Periodically I'll go back to really early point and clicks. I have at least 2 playthroughs of Loom sitting in my Twitch history. And currently I'm on like Elite Dangerous and Sniper Elite. So yeah, I stream on both Twitch and YouTube. And I am Druttercup in both places. So twitch.tv/Druttercup and youtube.com/@Druttercup there. But yeah, I am Druttercup on both. Drut for short to my mates, and Linda M. Evans if I'm being professional, which I do try to be on occasion. So yeah, I am also generally take both commissions and any donations anyone wants to give me, because life is hard and I'm a freelancer and I have no money, on ko-fi.com/Druttercup, where I will do things like I accept writing prompts and such in return for the price of a cup of coffee. I will write you a cursed item or a scenario hook or something along those lines.
Nice.
Basically, I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube, I am on Ko-fi.com. If you're on the Talsorian official Discord, I am one of the moderators. Play nice. And yeah, that's basically how to find me.
And all those links will be, if not in the video description, pinned as one of the top comments, so you'll be able to find through a quick link.
That's cool. If you have any writing commissions that you happen to have going spare, I don't care about the genre, please.
Would you do character backstory prompts?
Yep.
There you guys go.
Sorry, should I have taken 3 nanoseconds to think about that?
No.
Yes. Yeah. I've done character backstory prompts. I've done cursed items. I've done, here is an image of something. Tell me why it's eldritch. For people. And yeah, I also, as I said, I do editing and proofreading.
One thing I've written is available for purchase is the Missing Marbles gig for Cyberpunk RED that is available on drivethrough-rpg.com.
Yes, I would like to point out, because I have to, that this is a non-canonical scenario because it was done for Loke Battlemaps rather than for Talsorian, although we had to run everything past Artel, obviously. But, yeah, basically I'd done a couple of D&D scenarios, 5th Ed, for Matt Henderson at Loke Battlemaps, and he said, would you be interested in doing a cyberpunk scenario? And I bit his hand off at the wrist. And I just went, okay, what would I do for a nice contained scenario? Because I kind of specialize on TV there'd be bottle shows. I find that scenarios where you've got a really limited word count, you need to kind of nail things down either geographically or temporally. Ideally both, if you can manage it. And I do an awful lot of things like locked house situations. Yeah, basically I decided that I would go for a point-to-point, basically, a whistle-stop tour chasing something, and I decided that chasing a cat would be the most obvious because cat herding is the best description I've heard of GMing ever. And at that point I decided on Marbles the cat, and then Talsorian brought out the DLC like that month for Your New Best Friend, which included the Obsidian Ocelot. Try saying that 3 times fast. Which is it's a small big cat, obviously an ocelot, which is geared up with chameleonics, artificially enhanced jaw and talons and things, and is basically pitched as the assassin's pet de jour. And I thought, okay, one of them only Moggy. So I decided on a scaled down version, basically the runt of the litter of an Obsidian Ocelot batch.
Ocelot.
Yeah, so he's basically he is full size grown cat, but he's supposed to be considerably larger, is Marbles. So he's got all the genetic programming, the training, or trainability rather. I believe he's still got the chameleonic fur, but I downgraded everything else, and I was kind of right. Okay, so he can't have the full size claws, but he can have the enhanced claws. So we'll work out that way in between that. So he's basically like notched down from a standard Obsidian Ocelot to a point where it wouldn't be ridiculous for him to be in the situation he is. And essentially, I just decided he got nicked by someone who didn't want to dispose of him as a faulty batch, and then sold him on the black market, and he got bought by an artist, and then the artist used him to record "You Are a Cat" brain dances for his work.
Which is amazing.
Which is when
Lucrative market.
marbles.
Like,
Yeah.
100%. Like, I've never been really into the whole braindance recorder thing. If someone's like, but you could experience life as a cat, I'd be like, sold. Done. Let's
Yep.
go.
Doing
it.
That's it. Yeah. That would be the ticket. That would
This
be
was
Jess's
my-
gateway
yeah.
into braindances.
This is it. This is it. This is the theory. I thought that would sell, and you've got this wonderfully pretentious artist, CL4, because I was poking around at names and I realised that I think it's Old English, I think, for silver is seal, and I went, okay, right, CL4, good name. So he himself is synth skin, silver, and he's got silver hair and silver eyes and all this business. And I thought, well, you couldn't get much more pretentious than that. And yeah, he basically sends his cat out recording life on the rooftops with a braindance recorder attached to his backpack and linked to the chip in his head. And Marbles being Marbles, being a cat, manages to get somewhere he shouldn't, sees something he shouldn't, which is of course recorded. And the people who he spots would very much like the recording back, please. And that is what the crew are hired for. Is essentially they are hired by someone who specialises in 11th hour saves, and he is hired by CL4 to basically save his life and find his cat, so that he has some leverage against the guys who would very much like to break his legs and his head. Yeah, they spend the night running around chasing down a cat based on snippets of video footage he sends every hour. So
Which is
they
an
get to-
amazing
they get some-
premise.
yeah, they get to some funny games. Like they get to he's at a Elflines Online club. He just pitches up at a bar and is kind of spotted there, so they have to engage. They don't have to. They have to engage with the Elflines Online people, but there's an opportunity to play an Elflines Online fight. Because
Why would you not?
it's you're going to do for a raid. You're going to give us a hand with this, and then we'll tell you what we know. So it's all optional, obviously, but it's good fun. And yeah, but one of the things I was aiming with was the crew who are the villains of the piece, the antagonists, who are not the people who were witnessed doing something illegal. They're the ones who were being hired to do something illegal. And I wanted them to come off as, if things had gone one step to the left, you could play them. You could easily, I think, flip Missing Marbles so that you're playing the members of, or replacing the members of Hellfire and Damnation, the H&D, the Edge Runner crew, who have been hired to track down and deal with Marbles and sleeping with the kitty litter. So I thought it'd be interesting, because in Night City, unless you've got personal beef with someone, you could easily find yourself working against a crew who you're then drinking with that evening, 2 days later. Because if you start taking things personally, that way is a really good way to start getting yourself into trouble, losing support networks, making your friends and family take sides. making your contacts take sides, and that's never good for business for anyone. So I quite liked the idea that, yeah, it could have been a PC crew hired for an assassination and sent off as an extra because they happen to be there to take out or capture a Moggy, while an enemy crew attempts to find it on behalf of the owner. So I think I might write the other side of it actually as a scenario and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that could be fun. Put in what tweaks you need to include.
Yeah. I really enjoy that you're going up against another crew, essentially. It's not against a corporation. It's not against a gang. It's not, because there's so many more just regular people and other crews out there. And I appreciate that you brought that down to street level, going, this could have been you. You could have been going up against you.
Yeah. I mean, going up against the corporations is, they're an amorphous force. You are not going to beat a corporation. You are gonna trip over gangs on a regular basis, and people handle gangs. There are many people who handle gangs much better than me, and although I'm happy to use them as antagonists, I have a bad habit of making them far too sympathetic, and to be honest, there are so many edge runner crews out there. They cannot all be doing things on, quote, the side of the light. Everybody's working for a paycheck. Everyone's got rent to make. And villains don't have to be absolute bastards. They can be very satisfying if they're absolute bastards. But certainly short-term, one-off missions, they're more likely to be professionals. I'd far rather be dealing with that. Because then you've got the motivation behind them. You know, not only they're doing this for money, but there is well, how far are they prepared to actually go? Where is their line in the situation? And it doesn't have to be a massive heel turn that, oh, actually, they're quite nice and they can be deterred from doing what they've been hired to do. Which I think is a slightly television way of doing things. Whereas these guys are professional. Hellfire and Damnation are professionals. They are a proper edge runner crew. I actually worked up all their backstories and everything. So you are facing off against, Brimstone, who is their leader, and they're not stupid. I think all too often enemies can be seen as disposable, and this is just generally in scenarios, which I know, and this is something that I know is people in Red certainly try and avoid, which is idiots who do things like they don't realise when they're beaten in a situation, they don't realise when something is suspicious or too dangerous, they're just there to be beaten up. And I think with Red, there's more intelligence kicking around in there. Witcher does the same thing, actually. There is no reason to have a fight to the bitter end. If you are losing, get the hell out of Dodge. Yep. And that goes for both PCs and NPCs. And that's a sort of a design philosophy I always try and go with. I don't like stupid enemies unless they are actively supposed to be mindless. Monsters, for example. But even then, if it's got some animalistic level of intelligence, it's gonna know not to stand where it keeps getting hurt.
Some degree of logic to it. Yeah,
it's gonna go. But there's a lot of people I see online and such talking about, they absolutely have to finish every last monster off. When would something break and run? But they keep making morale checks or whatever, local equivalent there too. And I'm thinking, well, when would my bacon run? When they're getting their arse handed to them, frankly. If nothing
They're
else, they're
here
going
for
to
a
pull
check.
out and they're going to, yeah. You're not getting paid enough to get greased in this. This is an emergency. Oh God, we've got to do this job. But you're still not getting paid enough to end up, thinly divided particles all over an alleyway somewhere.
Yeah.
So there and these people are professionals, so they got to be professionals, so they've been working for a while, so they're not idiots. So yeah, I always like to have intelligent enemies. They're more fun than dippy ones.
I love that philosophy. Because I think a lot of people do fall into the trap of like, oh, these are the bad guys are going to be here until you finish them off. Instead of like, okay, but logically.
And I think it gives much more story meat and substance too, where with this crew that you've created, especially if you're going to insert them into, say, a long-running campaign instead of doing this as, say, a one-shot. I, as a GM, because I'm a horrible, evil person, would have them show up at, like, a bar that the crew is at and have them drink and have, like, be like friends, do like a dart throwing or an arm wrestling something and have that camaraderie, and then be like, oh, well, now you're on opposite sides of a job, what do you do? That could turn into like a professional friendly rivalry where every now and again you're on the same job as this crew that and there's no bad blood. It's just kind of like, let's see, can you get it first? No, I'm gonna get it first. And it's friendly competition.
A big part of the problem is that people come from like Dungeons and Dragons, which originally was a war game. Like, it came from tabletop wargaming into role-playing. And so people are, like, in their head, they think, like, murder hobo is the right path, which is not a great look.
Again, no.
Yeah.
Nah. The everything must die before an encounter ends mentality is something that's really, really common. It used to be almost the obvious thing to do. You got the feeling that enemies were sitting around in a cupboard waiting for you to turn up, or were deployed en masse, shaken out of the box, and they were there for you to deal with. They didn't really have lives. They weren't people, even if they were intelligent races, aliens, whatever, as opposed to mindless monsters. And I think it helps to realize that, even your ravening orc raiders, they go home, they kick back, they have families, they have lives, they have homes, and they exist off screen. And somebody may turn up and they may be ultraviolet bastards when you're facing them, but that doesn't mean that they're stupid about it. So that's kind of where I land on such things. I always like to know that there is somewhere for these people to go when the camera's off them. When the PCs aren't there. The other thing I am going to say about missing marbles, dragging myself physically back to the topic, is that I was given a pack of maps at Loki. You get the inspirational imagery, basically, and I'm not talking as in, oh my god, that's so inspirational. As in, this just trips ideas. It just makes you think, okay, yep, that's fine. I've got ideas popping into my head left, right, and sideways. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this is how it works, and then you can backtrack things that have occurred to you looking at the maps and apply them to, okay, how did the bad guys get to this position? How did they act to get to here? And that informs earlier encounters and interactions. So it works both ways.
I love that the maps brought inspiration to your writing. for Missing Marbles. Was there any sort of outside audiovisual inspiration that you took for your writing in Night City 2045?
My thing with 2045 is all the stuff I was presented with, because the way it worked, we were basically given a list of, we need to do these neighborhoods. Have a look at what locations there are there. Pitch to us which neighborhood you'd like. And my thing is, I always feel that a location needs to be livable. It needs to be more than somewhere to have a fight or somewhere to have a covert meeting. You need all those things. But there are people living here. So in addition to somewhere to have a fight, some people to hire you, places to grab a bowl of noodles while you're looking moodily and planning how to mess someone up. There's going to be the places that the workers go after work. There's going to be, people have lives. They want amusement. They want diversion. And it has to be somewhere they can live. So I always like to throw on something that sort of speaks to that end of things. Weirdly, the Warriors is always one of my Red inspirations. I will quite happily chuck that on second monitor, because I think it's one of the best ways of depicting the gangs. And again, they're all real people, or at least the ones you're focusing on are. So that's always the way to go. Also, on the place to live, Strange Days, which is not just dodgy brain dance dealer. You have things like Angela Bassett's character, who is a solo, but she's a solo and is also a single mum, and is, she has her life, and you get to see her neighborhood, the way she's having to live, sorting out childcare. You don't think in terms of, your edge runner crew needing to work out who's going to be babysitting a little Colin while you do the raid, and you got someone who's going, well, we're going to have to have assassinated him by 9:30 because the babysitter's gone by 10. So I can't stay past then. It's those kind of films I go to first. Also, and this is probably incredibly stereotypical, the Karl Urban series, Almost Human.
Yeah.
I think that Night City has to be livable. So that's kind of where I am on that, and that's what I tend to pick up on when I'm doing mood material and things like that, to put myself in the right brain set for it. Not everything looks like Blade Runner.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, a lot does.
I don't know. I really love Johnny Mnemonic for it because of, like,
God, I want room service. Oh yes, I love that. Yes, Johnny Mnemonic. Gibson put together an excellent blueprint in the short story. It had, because it goes point to point to point to point to point, you get to see an awful lot in a short space of time. And yeah, the film gives you that. It gives you that ecosystem of regular people just trying to function in addition to absolute bastards. And oh dear God, what the hell was Dolph Lundgren doing? Apart from being completely terrifying. And plus Dolphin. But the I want room service line speech where he has the complete nervous breakdown. So
Yeah, Games, what questions do you have?
I was gonna ask, with you starting off on the Witcher line, before you moved over to the Red line, do you have a completely different process for working on Red, or is it a very similar kind of sit down?
No, to be honest, I like my plots. I start with the characters and the situation, but the situation isn't necessarily the setting. It'll be more of a macro. I tend to specialize in mysteries. So I always start with someone did something to someone, and I then kind of work that out and then ripple out the rest of enough of the world to be able to fit it in and for people to relate to it. And when it comes to lore stuff, I start again. The process is very, very similar. I will put myself in the right headspace by reaching out for appropriate mood music, material, video. When I'm actually writing, I can't normally have songs going. I have music going, instrumentals. I make vast use of my soundtrack library from various video games, films, what have you, to give me that and to put me in the right mood. And I dive into things like original source material. I will dive into the wikis. They are excellent for initial research. I've got all the books on Kindle, obviously, for Witcher. Not obviously, but I also have them in Dead Tree in my hall. They get read a lot, but of course, for research purposes, Kindle is the way to go, or ebook rather is the way to go. And I will be diving into those. I will be digging around looking for specific regions, people, places, how are they handled, because the Witcher RPG is kind of hybridized between the books and the video games, but the style is obviously more orientated towards the video games because I think that's had a wider exposure, certainly outside Poland. People are more familiar with it. But while the aesthetic is very much the video games, the backstory and the setting is very much that of the books. So yeah, my process is basically when I've got a gig and it's nice and specific, I will read as much as I can. I will have mood music on, and I will put wallpaper videos on, digging into, so I can sort of then dig into the setting and really get my head around the specifics of the bit I'm supposed to be writing about. I will quite often go neck deep in the old rule books for Cyberpunk and novels and such for Witcher.
You mentioned how mysteries are something that you prefer to do, excel at.
Yep.
Yep. And I want to thank you for our beloved Did Someone Say Murder DLC mystery mechanics and our hashtag Justice for Barry, as always. Favorite NPC just came out of nowhere.
Bless him. Oh, I love Barry so much. I feel so sorry for him. Basically, the investigation system Jay Gray wrote for The Witcher's Journal. I'm not going to say I worked on that, but he did chuck it at me before it was published and said, "Is there anything missing? Is there anything you could, think of that needs to be in there that isn't?" And there were a couple of points I said, "Please, can we not?" And one, "Please, can we?" And some minor changes happened in there as a result. So when it came to sorting that out for Red, he came to me, and it was in Jolly, wasn't it? And it was kind of, right, can you adapt the Witcher investigations to Night City? The answer is yes. I will just bite your hand off at the elbow now, sir. And that was so much fun. That was so much fun because I adore investigations. Absolutely love them. I adore noir, and I know it's a cliche, but yep, cyberpunk is noir with neon. It's people again. That's something noir does so well, is it has its characters. People are more than ciphers, bizarrely, although tropes are fairly standard in noir, go figure. Even, your femme fatale has a back life, has a backstory, has a personal life, inner life. And I love building investigations. And it was such a fun opportunity to look at how skills and abilities and processes would work in Red, while also tidying up some of the stuff that maybe was, I'm not going to say clunky, but I think now that Red has evolved and has had so much material published for it, I think there were elements in the investigation system that just made more sense to bring together. So, and I got to do Barry.
Right.
I got asked to do it was a, you need to open with a short fiction, and me and Jolly had basically split the work between us. He's better on the pure mechanic stuff, and I'm better on conceptual stuff, although we can both do both. And it was divided out, was quite nicely worked there. So both playing to our strengths. I envy his ability to just pull out the mechanics, I have to say. I have to go to the book on the regular, but I'm Captain Flavor Text, and I started writing Barry. I was okay, we need to, two for the 24/7, two for the media, is doing an investigation. Okay, what's he investigating? And I did it in the space of about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And by the end of it, I was thinking, oh, poor Barry. Because I knew where I wanted to take that if I was running it. And when it came out, I had a couple of people saying, what happened to Barry? And they were saying, oh, well, obviously Barry's dead. And I just occasionally chucked in, oh, poor Barry. Of course, I couldn't say what happened to him. Well, I've turned it in, gun for hire here, mate. I don't get to decide what happens to Barry afterwards. He's now turned up in, his case has now turned up in 3 DLCs.
Yep.
And, various awful things having happened to poor Barry. They've got some really good ideas they've just alluded to in the DLCs, in the different fictions. He only had like 12 lines. Yeah. But everybody kind of glommed onto him really hard.
So sweet.
And it's so much fun. But yeah, I'm amazed people still refer to Barry, and this was kind of, 2024 wrote this. So that's just nice. And I firmly believe in playing fair. I was making shit up on the fly initially when I wrote it. Just in the what's the most awful illusion I can make to make people going ooh. But when you then come to write scenarios, when you then come to expand upon such things, I think you have to play fair and stick with what you've got, stick with what you've done, and you have to make it work within the context of the world. But yeah, it's a hashtag for justice for Barry, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I loved working with Njolly on that, because although we're quite different writing styles and specialities, it worked really well. We were able to collab quite nicely on that. Like 2045, NC 2045. Although my area was Charter Hill, I did Upper Marina with Fran Stewart, and we literally ended up, I think we were almost to the word 50-50 on that, and we just bounced everything back and forth so hard, and worked it out so that A, we split the workload, and B, everything was the same flavour. Everything worked as if it were one person writing, in my humble opinion. I mean, then obviously Jay Gray and the editors and such worked, their usual witchcraft, and made it 99% less awkward for my stuff. But everything, they made it so easy for us to collaborate. And of course, it wasn't just us. We had the big writers group, and they made it so nice at our Talsorian to be able to just chuck ideas at each other. And it's, well, I've come up with this, not sure it fits anything I've got to write. Can anyone use it? That kind of attitude. Which is how we ended up with Goostopia.
Unfortunately,
but yeah,
has to leave.
They made collaborating.
I would love to stay and visit, but I must go.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, absolutely. Nice. It's been lovely talking to you, sir.
Thank you. I hope we talk again.
Yes, let's
2045.
Yeah, delve into Charter Hill. I know.
Okay.
I was told
Sure.
the first thing I had to ask you. Jay told me this. He said the first thing you need to ask Linda is how to pronounce the city manager's name.
And why people have such a problem with this guy.
Well, I assume it's Simon.
His name. It is, yes. It is his name. His name is. Hang on, we're on the mainland. Let me just.
I almost want to guess, but I'm sure I'll butcher it.
No, I was going to ask you to guess, because I know I've told people how to do it, and I even went so far on the Discord. I dropped in an audio file, just because you can leave an audio message.
Yes.
I did it in that because I thought I will do that because I can't be asked to spell it out phonetically. But yeah, I would be I'm fascinated to see how you would pronounce that. So please go ahead.
It's going to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's. I would pronounce it. Simon Featherstoner.
That is I will say, I mean, it's wrong, but I will say that is genuinely original.
Oh, well,
honest to God, I have not heard anyone else do that one. I have heard some completely twisted versions. His name is Simon Fanshawe. That's how you pronounce Featherstone Hall is Fanshawe. If you are of a mind, if you are of a mind to, I don't know if there still are, but there were a couple of dance companies. One was all men, one was all women. One was called the Fanshaws, spelt like that, and the other one was the Chumleys, spelt Cholmondeley.
Oh wow!
Basically, and I can only imagine the absolute delight that must have been on posters. I'm not quite sure how they would have fitted them, but yeah, that it was basically the Fanshawe and the Chumleys, but it was spelt Featherstone Hall and Cholmondeley, and I heard about those when I was a kid, And it was just one of those, yep, we're doing that now. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That is now, my brain is working. So it just works. I love it.
I think that's great. I'm glad I got to ask you, because now
I
now
love that
know.
name. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, no bugger knows how to pronounce it. It's great fun. Actually, I say that anyone that side of the Atlantic seems to have a hell of a time, because it's just not a name that made it over there unaltered.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing. It exists in so many ways, but it is existing probably anglicized.
But I know,
Simplified,
I know
shall we
exactly
say.
what you meant, though.
To a simpler form that does not give people a coronary when attempting to communicate it over a phone, for example. I can imagine that being fun. As a possessor of a name that nobody can spell, I can relate, and I thought I would make it everybody's problem.
And you know what the best
nobody
part
can pronounce my middle name
for me as a player, because when I notoriously take notes, part of my ADHD too is if I'm writing notes, I'm more
I love
focused
it when
and
people
engaged,
take notes.
right? Always. Yep. I have like 5 notebooks for a 4-year campaign. But I always ask the GM, how do you spell that? So I just like imagining all those note takers that are like, oh, it's Simon Fanshawe, and they're like, how do you spell that? Spells feather.
F-E-A-T-H-E-R.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I was expecting pushback on that. Like, I kind of got away with it. There were a few things I kind of got away with in this. Right. I wasn't entirely expecting to get away with Visible Man as a DJ, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I just wanted someone who sounded like he would talk like this. And that's the guy who owns 92.9 Night FM. I mean, he's not listed as a DJ, but he definitely was.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, because there's a different DJ.
He's got one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's one, basically, and, because Genesis Toast isn't there literally 24/7 because, I think he has a home. But, yeah, probably. He wouldn't want to live there because it ain't stable. It's not safe. That's why he got it cheap. So, there are going to be different people,
other DJs,
different medias there, DJs there. But, yeah, I think Vince Mann definitely either was a frustrated DJ, really wanted to do it and ended up as an exec and can't quite work out where he went wrong, or he did it at like university level. He was the cool guy on the Drive Time show.
Speaking of voices, I do like Teddy's intro for Charter Hill, because as someone who does a talk show, I'm like, he so went into talk show mode. Like, he so went into, yes. As the news, my name is this. The tip line's always open, and if you have a message, I'm like, that is so a media thing to do.
And yeah, Teddy now, lives in my head rent free, because he definitely is going to get himself killed at some point. I suspect. He's the tip line is always open kind of guy, and yes, we've got 3 people on the line now, and there's a 500 ebb fee available to the first person who gives me the names. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely, it's pure talk show. He really is. It's kind of crime. He's more Crime Watch than serious news director, in my humble opinion.
I was curious. Jay's often talked about bridging with Red, because you have 2020, you have 2077, and so you can pull from both if you so choose to. You can advance things, or you can be okay. Well, what does this look like prior to? Which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people that try. They're like, well, what if I want this thing in here, just as is? And I'm like, but it's so much more fun for me to be like, okay, but what's an earlier, worse version? before it has that time to refine, right? So as you wrote Charter Hill and having that those or I guess a playground to go forward towards,
kinda, yeah,
because Charter Hill was not one of the original districts. If I recall correctly, kind of like downtown. Downtown, it wasn't one of the named. It wasn't a named. Kabuki wasn't a named.
It was there.
Yeah,
but no, it wasn't its own. I don't think it was its own thing. Charter Hill was so weird because basically the brief was it got crapped on in the Fourth Corp War. Like, basically, Charter Hill got fragged. There were all these historical buildings and fantastic buildings in the area in 2020, and then the Fourth Corporate War happened, and it's kind of, well, that's fucked. We're now back down to bare. Essentially, for the most part, so much just got flattened. And it was like, okay then, what's there in 2077? What was there in 2020? How do I square that circle? Knowing that Charter Hill really did get smashed. Because it got twatted and then it was bought up in huge parcels by the various corporations as places to live, work, store their executives who aren't quite good enough to make it into the executive neighborhood. And what is still going to be there? So some places survived, but I was not sure how they were going to have done so. The people aren't necessarily dead who owned them. People are stubborn. They quite often rebuild exactly the same as what was there. But there's very little that's old. There's very little with inherent history in Charter Hill. It's got associated history. It's got social history. But there's not a lot that has been there for more than a couple of decades, to be honest. And some of it is going to be gone by 2077. So that's an interesting way to look at things. I mean, I'm still getting my head around the idea on the whole, Brits think 100 miles is a long way to drive and Americans think 100 years is a long time. As for buildings. Yeah. But once you get your head around that difference, excuse me.
And there is definitely a difference. And I like the idea, too, that perhaps somebody rebuilt a building to look that exact same way, where it's like, oh, no, this is the historical building, but the materials are definitely, like, no, it's still only, like, 10 years old. It just looks like it, it's been fabricated as though.
Yeah.
And someone's trying to pass it off as, like, it's the only building that survived in Charter Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. It's things like, you had legendary hotels in 2020. Well, no, not anymore. Anything bigger than a couple of stories, bye. So, anything that was a target. So there are some places I think either got rebuilt to look similar or are harking back to the era when Charter Hill was something special. And of course, everything has had its approvals and what have you put through by the highest bidder.
Yep.
Because Simon Fanshawe is building up his pension plan. So let's go back to the one.
I love that he's so open about it too.
Oh yeah. It's officially he is a weed, and he will cave to whoever bribes him. But nobody gets to see his bank account, and he is a very organised lad. I reckon if he doesn't have an exit plan, I will be astonished. Mainly because I wrote him one, but I didn't put in. I'm very bad at
He
that.
has multiple exit plans.
Right amount.
Let's be
Oh
honest.
God, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Damn it, Jim. But okay, Night FM is new because that used to be something else. Angelica's, I can see. I think Angelica's was originally there. Now Angelica's I can see being rebuilt, but I can see that being rebuilt in a new style, because the whole point of that is they want to be cutting edge, and everybody wants to be the singularity between AI, between robotic and human.
Yep.
So, as I say, Angelica's I think was already there, but I think that got flattened and rebuilt. I think that, in my humble opinion. Not sure about Bellamere, because that is the very fashion conscious nightclub. But I think if anything survived of an older building, I think Bellamere would have done the repairs on that, and made that look good. Colonial Studios, of course, moved. That was actually in a different place. Basically, it was in a much, much bigger area, and it needed to move to be fully within Charter Hill, and Charter Hill is not very big. So I had to define a reason and what they were up to now based on their history. So I decided on them basically cutting it right back down to minimal services. So instead of the sprawling traditional film studios, film backlots, I thought, okay, look at what they're doing now with green screen studios, and what people like Rebellion are doing, as in Rebellion Games, who have a video studio, which is fantastic, and I desperately would love to go there, where entire curved backdrop is screens, so they can do live computer generated backgrounds with real actors in front. So it's not green screen, you can see it.
Yeah.
You can react to it. There's a short using Jason Kingsley, because I think he just went, I've got armor, and they went, yeah, and you're the boss, okay, off you go. They were using that to illustrate how it worked, and it was just him walking in and I think sticking his sword in the ground and that kind of thing, but moving around, and the magical woods behind him were moving, and things were changing as he acted, and looking at what technology currently can do, and evolving that. Also, once you incorporate brain dance, which, to be honest, this is why they're doing so much location shooting and such like that. You can really cut back with the space you need for productions. And yeah, that's how I decided on how much they had, what they had access to.
Interesting when you say like location for Brain and Studio, because I did have a question for you about Colonial Studios, so I don't want to go past too fast. Because you crafted so many brilliant small stories for Welcome to the Neighborhood in Hope Reborn. It's likely my favorite chapter in that entire campaign. I love it so much.
You're allowed to say that.
I wouldn't if it wasn't true. But like reading all those little gigs, knowing you can go, it just felt very slice of life and so street and building up, and I love that entire section so much. So in a similar vein, I feel like Colonial Studios is a place where you could do a lot of little tiny gigs.
Very much.
And so when you said, like locations, like actually getting like filming on location, is that something like Colonial Studios might hire a crew to do? Be like, go here and get some footage for this, especially for crews that want to go outside of Nights, because I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, what's out there? What's this or that or whatever. Is there maybe a location you think that would be prime, that they would be like, would they prefer in city or would they prefer Badlands? I mean, obviously your table, your game, but
I reckon that they would be able to get footage from nomad tribes. I think nomad families would be a really good way to get hold of footage to then manipulate into backdrops and work into productions for sort of Badlands and open areas and communities outside Night City. But I think one thing I would really love to see is I would love to see water-based setups. I think it would be great to set up a PC crew doing second unit effectively for productions of sort of pirate hunting.
Yeah.
And going for a let's do the show right here vibe by setting them up with an armed vehicle, which of course would not have police credentials, would not have any kind of security credentials at all, and then just set them off to tackle minor pirates and smugglers in the bay and just outside, obviously dodging the various mines. And I think I would love to see that, where everybody would have to be incredibly careful to always wear the same costume. You're only allowed to wear what they give you. You can't wear your own armour, because God help you for the continuity.
Yep.
You can't be looking at the camera at the wrong time. I just love the idea that, a crew that gets picked because there's the right number of them and a couple of them look like the leads a bit if you squint. So they're stuck with the same hair colour, same hairstyle. But, they're never allowed to actually show their faces or something on camera. And I think that might be so much fun to do as a story. And you could have them, facing off against smugglers and what have you, probably also tripping over both Corpo and maybe Coast Guard forces, and wanting to know what the bloody hell they're playing at. But I think that could be just a giggle. I really do. Going for the whole guerrilla filming thing to supply footage while your actual stars are doing things far more safely in the studio. Very large swimming pool kind of setup, with about 90% less chance of getting blown up at random. So that, I think, could be a screen, but they'd have a screen. You would have to give them a shot list. We need X amount of you speeding through people's wakes. We need X amount of pursuits. We need at least 2 explosions of legally distinct different vehicles. None over X amount of size, because we can't fit anything bigger in the backlot. So for our own footage, it has to match. It has to be one of these 2 vehicles. And yeah, I think giving them a shot list as a gig and expecting them to sort that out would be a scream. I think it would be fun.
Amazing.
And then they would never ever be on camera. Never get paid. Their faces would never be on camera, and therefore they would never get full whack as actors.
Yep.
They'd probably get overdubbed if their voices were ever recorded. That kind of thing. You maybe approach somebody, one of the crew separately and say, would you be willing to wear this brain dance recorder covertly, so we can get the behind the scenes footage for the special edition release.
Yeah.
Promo. Which would be fun. And suddenly we're into Slay Industries. But no, I think that would be the scream. But yeah, I can definitely see them outsourcing, location footage, location scouting.
Mm-hmm.
On the land, I definitely think location scouting. You'd be looking for specific places that you would then forward to Colonial for actual people to come and film specific elements in. And yeah, you could do that within Night City itself, you want an authentic rough neighborhood. Well, God knows, we've got a list of them. I'm sure you can probably almost not get yourself killed. So, imagine having a bunch of extras who are looking really worried because they've got to pretend to be Maelstrom that week.
Yeah.
So they're just desperately hoping nobody looks at them and notices. Either the gang they're pretending to be or any of the enemies of.
Yeah.
I think that would be a giggle. Why are you kicking off against them? They're clearly 6th Street. And? Well, they're bastards. Why are they running away? Oh, he's an actor. I'm sorry. That kind of crap. Yes.
Lovely.
Is there anywhere
For
else
the
you like?
Charter Hill Museum of All Art, how famous a rocker boy or what DV would you say for a paint draw sculpt or appropriate skill is needed to have your art displayed there?
Okay. I would argue that I need the rulebook because I have thoughts on that. I think for charismatic impact, that's basically what you're looking at.
Right.
I think as much as anything, over and above your actual artistic skills. I think it's going to be really tricky. I think you could probably use your charismatic impact to find somebody who has access if you want to do it illegitimately. Or even legitimately, actually. If you're doing it legitimately, then you find somebody who is in charge of curating an exhibition, and you look at looking at 7 or 8 ranks in my humble to do that legitimately, and get your work in front of the people, because you'll have somebody in power advocating to get your stuff there. Doesn't matter necessarily how good it is, they really like it. However, if you're trying to do it less legitimately, you just need a security guard who's willing to turn the other way.
Yeah.
When you literally just cart your stuff in and you set it up against a wall. Because similar has actually happened, of course, in reality. And that's before you even get as far as people like Banksy.
Yeah.
I'm still well impressed with the most recent statue in London. Very happy with that.
Very well.
And there, I think you're looking at ranks 3 and 4. You're looking at the impact on the single fan. It's a DV8 to get it to convince them to do you a major favour. I would be inclined to say you're looking at a couple of them.
Yeah.
To get, to locate the, like I said, maybe the guard looks, is willing to let you come in. Maybe they're willing to look away while, gosh, the CCTV's gone down. Oh, darn it. Better go and check on one of the cameras. That kind of thing to protect you from doing your installation. And yeah, that way you could do it in a guerrilla fashion. But I think you're looking at needing a higher level of fame for that one. You're more likely to get into Graffiti X than you are the Museum of All Art. I think that's a more contemporary museum. more contemporary establishment, in my humble opinion.
You know, I
You
like
do not
the
want to see
idea
my
too
browser
of
tabs.
a fixer essentially being a curator.
Yeah.
A lot of the general vibe that I've gotten is fixers like weapons or armor or drugs, and it's like no, like high-end art is also a thing, or art just in general is also a thing.
Yeah. Think about Mr. K from and his night market, his midnight market. He knows where all the bodies are buried, cargo-wise. But what is dealt with at his night market, it's exclusive elements. It's not necessarily weapons. It could be jewelry. It could be tech. It could be art.
Real book.
It could be anything. It could be real books. You know, yeah. We could be talking dead trees here. But I Jay Gray, I think, assigned the actual levels of role to our NPC, the NPCs on here. But I can absolutely get behind him being a rank 8 fixer, because he is good. This guy is able to bring in collections that are normally kept stored in secure vaults in corporate buildings, or in the possession of the extremely rich, and he is able to get that into his building, into the building of the Museum of All Art, because he can make it prestigious enough to make it worth their while to show off what they've got, while also making it secure enough and convincing them that it is secure enough to let it out of their sight. And absolutely, I think you need to be incredibly smooth. I think I've encountered people who are event organisers, who witchcraft, I swear to God, the persuasion levels they've got to get people to contribute, to get people to donate, to get people to show their own stuff, and let them use their spaces, their equipment. And it's the same skill set. It is exactly the same skill set as going out and sourcing, your high-end guns for your crew, as working out where to get hold of that piece of equipment that exists somewhere, but it's you've got to follow down the purchase chain and find out who's actually holding it and get them to let you use it for a night. It is the same level of persuasiveness. Fixers are fascinating. People really underestimate them a lot. I think they just regard them, a lot of the time it's too easy to have your fixer come out as basically a money machine. You think of them just in terms of bargain, buying and selling, trading. And yeah, they do a lot of that. But fixers are the schmoozers. They'll deal in favors. They'll deal in, they will deal in cash, yeah, but they'll deal in favors. They'll deal in goods. They'll know who is who and who to talk to. And that's a huge thing. I think people think in terms of like Media and Rockaboy being the face and the communicators of a group, and fixers, maybe just the stay at home, the NPCs, whatever, but you don't get to know everybody without getting involved.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think fixers are right up there. No. Absolutely. Everybody has a speciality. And if you can get known for that speciality, being the person to come to, then you have to do far less work seeking out clients. You can use your networking skills. People will seek you out, and then you can use their network, and you can get to know their friends and their clients. And yeah, it's a massive opportunity.
But you're
Also,
absolutely
I
right.
had completely
it's still...
forgotten briefly that I based the Museum of All Art's description on a visit I made to the Picasso Museum in Malaga.
I love that.
Where you get basically there, the attendants and security all wear spray can roll neck long sleeve tops under suit jackets, but it's all sort of spray can level tightness. And I think it must just be to stop them hiding anything. But you also get searched and your bags get x-rayed on the way in. You're not allowed to take anything in. So it all goes into lockers and things. And so I think that was in the back of my mind. I thought it just, you can just, like so many things with Cyberpunk, you just take reality and you notch it up. You turn it up a couple of points, and you go from your heavily uniformed minimalist attendants. Well, now these ones, they're wearing absolute second skin bodysuits, not because it's hot or sexy, but because there is no way they are stealing anything.
Yep.
There is literally nowhere to put things. And yeah, I just like the idea that before you get in, you are absolutely searched and scanned and tripped a bit. And I want somebody to I want someone to come up with a heist to do that, to rob the Museum of All Art, because best of British luck to you. I really want someone to try that.
Well, while it's open, while you go through the scanner.
Oh God, yes.
Because I mean, while it's closed, you could bribe a guard. That's way too easy. It's like no.
Oh yeah.
Do it while it's open.
No. Absolutely, yeah. Also, ironically, the surveillance is going to be worse when it's closed. The surveillance is going to be expecting people to try and break in, an abseil into the roof or whatever. So that's going to be red hot. But during the day, although it's intense, there is going to be a limit to what they can do, because they have to give every visitor the same amount of attention to make sure none of them are doing anything untoward, which means that you're more likely to be able to maybe slip something through, but you would have to be a heck of creative to do it. I mean, I've got some ideas, but yeah, I'm not going to tell anyone because I might write them.
There you
go. Multi-day project, let's put it that way.
Yes. Oh yeah. Speaking of security, though, you put a very simple sentence in the description of Charter Hill. That was patrols will often stop suspicious people as they walk by. And I know there's a lot of people in crews, my crew is no exception, or our players are no exception, who walk around with a sniper rifle and an assault rifle and grenades on their belt and pistols strapped to them. And my character has always been conceal first, so she only ever visibly shows one handgun, which is perfectly acceptable. Maybe a melee weapon. Everything else, and she is a porcupine. Everything else though is concealable. But she's generally strapped with 8 to 10 weapons on her. You just don't know it. So I liked the simple sentence for the fact that most crews walk around heavily armed, and I'm like, they will stop you. Yeah. They will, based on this simple sentence, you will be stopped instantly.
Yeah. This is not the executive zone. This is where the people who want to live in the executive zone live and work. Wandering around like you're expecting a firefight, that is going to have the security providers, be that Militech or specific corpo security.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, every time you walk past a corporate building, you're going to have non-standard security. Some of them you may even be able to see. And, if you're wandering around literally clanking as you walk with all your worldly possessions in and under your coat, most of which go bang in a variety of interesting ways, you're gonna draw some attention there. And even if you've got technically nothing illegal, that's gonna really put a crimp in your day and bugger up timings. And of course, if you start arguing, there's nothing going to stop you being escorted to the nearest Militech station for a little chat about being rude to the security authorities. And why exactly were you carrying 23 stun grenades, sir? That kind of thing. So yeah, I think it people need to remember where they are. If you're in a gang-riddled neighborhood, yeah, fine, go equipped. You're not going to get anywhere if people are watching you with a "the hell have they got planned" expression.
Yeah.
Not unless you are doing it deliberately in order to get everybody looking at you while your Q ship of a solo drolls off looking, booted and suited and smart to get a job done while all the security providers are looking in your direction. Which may be a tactic that is perfectly valid.
Yeah. But not
But
for
yeah.
just walking down the street. They're like, oh, we're going to go do this in Charter Hill, fully decked out. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
Yeah.
it's not going to go the way you think it is.
No. It's like, you are not getting into a club, for example, absolutely packing. You are just not.
No.
It's not this, you're not going to get a fight or anything. You're just going to get a no, mate. If they're not going to let trainers in, they are certainly not going to let in submachine guns.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. Unless potentially you've got it, jazzed up with precious metals and such, and then you might get into Bellamere. But you'd be strictly limited on one ammo, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are high security areas. You're going to end up with most of your gear, if you're lucky, is going to be in the lockers at the entrance where you've just been searched. And that's if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, you're not getting in. It's just no. It's not happening.
Yeah.
There's enough places where they're going to do you a fashion check at the door anyway. But the whole fashion and grooming skills, part of that is knowing how to dress for the appropriate situation. And, Mad Max with more guns is not always going to be appropriate. Yeah, you're a well-hard edge runner crew. Excellent. If you turn up to a corporate location for a gig looking like you're a well-hard edge runner crew, odds are pretty good you're not getting in.
Yeah.
And that's gonna cause you no end of trouble to start with. You don't get to just assume that because you own all this stuff, you're big news and people are just gonna go, okay, in you come. Because there's always a bigger fish. And one of the things about Cyberpunk RED is you're probably not the bigger fish. The odds are good. Very, very good that you're not even much above minnow.
Yeah. One of the other locations I really enjoyed that you wrote was Many Hands.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Which is the employment agency that takes from anywhere else to do those jobs that nobody wants to do in the pretty parts of town. Yeah,
they started off far nastier before I actually submitted. They were, how can I put this? They've now come round to being a version of those guys who would say, right, we've got 23 mining jobs for today. Who's a qualified miner in Wales, for example? Used in really good example of which is in Pacific Rim, right at the start, where they're saying we've had a couple of deaths on the wall, so we got two gigs, 2 jobs, top of the wall, and huge numbers of people all wanting to work. So that's kind of where Many Hands are. They basically will take people from anywhere. They are not necessarily looking at skilled. They're looking at your ability to breathe, have a pulse, and do the physical labour. They are doing less bashing over the back of their head than I initially considered. I did moot the idea of them, instead of bribing people by paying those really suffering and in shitty living conditions to come and do day jobs. I did initially consider going more the press gang route, if need be, kind of just tooling up to a refugee camp or something, and just sending people out with the saps and just going bam, bam, bam. Right, you 8, you're in. You'll get paid at the end. You just won't get paid much, and do it like that. But I opted not to, because you can get away with that in different areas, but I don't think Charter Hill will do it. If nothing else, they want traceability. It's like farm to fork.
Yeah.
They want to know where their workers have come from. They don't necessarily care who they are, but they want to know at least roughly what region they've come from. Both if they're really cool, if they're really good, hard workers, you want to go back to roughly the same people. And if they're shit, then you want to never go there again.
Yep.
And if they're criminal, then you at least want to know the streets they came from, so that you can then send in, the men with big boots to cause trouble, and educate them as to why they do not do that to your service. And doing things like buying off prisoners with appropriate skills, I thought it just makes sense. People don't want to be in prison, have abilities, better to be using it even if it's a crap rate, because you're not in a prison at the time.
Yeah.
So you may as well come and do the thing that you know how to.
I assume the same
instead
for anyone
of
in a tent
being in
city.
prison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why are you going to struggle day in, day out when, it's a crap job, but it's a crap job you know how to do, and you're going to get paid at the end. You're not going to get paid great, but you're going to have enough for, the day's food, the day's, a couple of weeks' rent, maybe.
No.
So it's not... They're not paid... Many Hands are not... I mean, they are bastards, obviously, but they are not brutal. It would be ridiculous for them to be brutal. So they're less about kidnapping, and they're more about just taking anybody, and getting them to work. So, I mean, the things about, the full decontamination, delousing and stuff, and having them in jumpsuits that everybody can identify. It's a little bit community service. But it just makes sense, because if they're utter sods and you're brutalised, then they're going to have people actually actively fleeing their pickup crews, their collection crews, and that's more effort than you want to put in.
Yeah.
So you've got things like everybody's chipped so that they can be located like puppies. And if you and this means that also you can locate people you've used previously. If someone turns out to be particularly good, then you've got their beacon code. You can actually locate them again in their tent village when you're next out looking for somebody of appropriate skills. And yes, Fanshawe is indeed majority shareholder, and Many Hands did indeed not have to bid for the contract to supply their workers. And I just realised how like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy I put there that last sentence is. That Fanshawe is a majority shareholder is almost certainly irrelevant, and any conflict of interest merely an oversight. Channeling Douglas Adams.
I do want to know, are there any other Easter eggs, kind of like the Picasso museum, but are there any Easter eggs or dark secrets in any of your locations that no one's noticed or that you're excited for people to find out?
Well, I can't believe I got away with calling somewhere Moicaro. That I am genuinely impressed about. Yes, hotel, very expensive. Okay. But and I also got to reference another Mystery Science Theatre line, actually, in one of the entries in Cyril Grove specifically, where I referred to The Dead Talk Back, which is both an appalling film and obviously a very, very good MST3K, because it's using sorry, no, that's the column. No, it was Cyril Grove, because it's using the not an AI, honest, it's not Gov. Yes, it is, to extrapolate people from their personal journals and such.
Actually, while we're on Cyril Grove,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you expand this, because Cyril Grove is a location in one of the Street Stories missions?
Yeah.
So, how much leeway did you have?
I went to the Street Stories. I made sure that I had read it properly, and all the implications and all the times it was both referenced and the visits to it. So I kind of was able to just customize off the top of that. I didn't want to take the information directly, because then I basically wouldn't feel like I was actually writing it. But although elements of it were already in there, I wanted to make sure that I could expand it out to something more reasonable as a place to use, not just as a place to have fights and meetings. Mm-hmm. So no, I did go straight to the Street Stories thing, though. I wanted to make sure it was right, because I absolutely did not want to contradict anything that's already been in there. And there you're looking at what loose threads are there still dangling that I can then expand something else off without changing what's already the core of the location. So me. And that's where I ended up. That's what I ended up doing. And Cyril Grove is completely illegal, which I think is great proof that, if you got the cash, it doesn't matter. Let's see. I will, however, refer to one of my favourite locations, which is your next big crash. Mm-hmm. Which I have a soft spot for. We were told we needed a couple more places that satisfied various things. Like there are crashes in the original 2020 book, but it was kind of, there needs to be more than like one per city, so give an idea of childcare options. So I came up with your next big crash, and I don't know whether nursery workers would find this weirdly familiar or just heinous. But it's the two-layer package system, the two-tier system. I thought it had to happen because anyone really, really rich, you've got a nanny.
Yep.
Anyone incredibly poor, you can't afford childcare. You know, your childcare consists of hope they don't die while you're out. And the regular working Joes and the mid to low level execs are the ones who actually need to be able to park their kids somewhere. And because let's face it, who can have a stay at home parent these days in reality, let alone in Night City?
Yeah.
And I just liked the idea of, you know, babies in fridges having how to be a good little worker drone BDs pumped into their heads, and the rich kids who get actual experiences and whose attendants are all heavily combat trained and have qualifications in childcare. Which does mean combat nanny is a thing. And there's a gig waiting to happen. Covering someone for, you know, a week or two as a combat nanny. If you want to go kindergarten cop. And I just liked that idea. It's didn't actually make it into the book, but it's kind of hinted at. They've got, you know, the real glass. I think it was real grass. I think we came up with sort of the artificial, genetically engineered vegetation. Mm-hmm. And we just decided that was it. Biotechnica real grass TM. I think we came up with real roses TM. Real grass TM. Real tree TM. Just, you know, it's technically it's grass. Yeah, sure, it's grass. It's also genetically marked so that nobody can grow it elsewhere and it doesn't grow to seed. But in my head, although it didn't make it into the book, that definitely the internal courtyard where they have their exercise periods for outdoor play is definitely lined with real grass. That's what they've got. It's, you know, designed to be safe and soft edged.
Would you say real
so that it doesn't damage?
Or tech grass, so they
real
can
grass.
put pretty colors on it.
Real grass. Oh, tech grass would be tech grass. I think would be something else. I think that would be a different thing. But real grass TM is referenced in the population section on page 224. Mm-hmm. Because it's an alternative. I liked the idea of it being an alternative to sort of plastic astroturf type thing, which is both horrible, expensive, and really crap for the environment. And while I don't think they'd be that fussed about the environment in the corpo-controlled world of Night City, I do think they'd be pissed at people's gardens and what have you, causing expensive houses to flood, not, you know, in bad weather, that kind of thing. So I think a version of vegetation that can be copyrighted and trademarked, I think is just logical as an alternative to the hydrocarbons that they just don't have access to anymore, of course. So instead of, you know, everything being bioplastic, you have it grow itself. And yeah, that just makes more sense to me. But no, I loved writing Your Next Big Crash. I just thought that was so sweet. And it just appealed to me.
Well, and it harkened back. I thought about it instantly when you were saying creating like a living world first and having places where you would go and having those working parents who, yeah, I'm not going to sacrifice my job to stay at home.
Yeah.
I need a daycare. I need some sort of
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
So yeah, your next big crush was my
Yeah.
first thing that popped in my head when you said that way back at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that is the thing. It's one of those things. That's where you live. That's where you can live. In the other chunk I wrote on Upper Marina, the biggest example of that is bar quarantine, which is a neighborhood pub, basically, with its own little tweaks, but it's where the criminals tend not to go anymore because they could, but it's full of people who are completely done with their day because they've been just done a 12-hour shift on customer service or construction or something, and they just want to drink and somewhere to sit down. And if you come in and give them shit, they're all they're not necessarily combat trained, but they're all probably very fit and absolutely done with your shit.
Yeah.
You know?
You've worked 12 hours retail, long day,
Yeah.
It's like,
yes. Oh dear God, 14 years customer service in retail, and I've done call center work. So there are some things where I just go, you know what, I would back any cashier against an awful lot of your trained mercs. Because there's rules for the mercenaries, whereas the cashiers would just kill you with sarcasm
and the glare.
And the glare, yeah, absolutely. Never underestimate the glare. And the 1,000-yard stare that says, "I'm dead inside. What are you gonna do to me?"
Yes.
I've just unpacked 5 totes of glasses. Give it up. And arrange them on hooks. Because why do people keep moving them around? Sorry. Reading glasses. Bane of my bloody life. They were. But yeah, it's give people somewhere to be. Give them somewhere to live. And give them both normal places and, your funky pink mohawk places. And I think that builds a city. I think that's where you go. I think the original 2020 did it really, really well. I think this is a great update. And everybody else has done some absolutely sterling work that I'm just thinking, why didn't I think of that so many times? And have fleshed out everything so well. And it's just, it's a proper book for a city. It's like, I mean, my best example is if you go over to Shadowrun, the original Seattle sourcebook for Shadowrun. Absolutely brilliant. Again, cover the mundanities. Where do people eat? Where do people go to let off steam? Apparently, if you're looking at what I've written, it's about 3 different brothels. I'm not quite sure how I managed that in this book, but never mind. Sorry. Houses of negotiable affection, and dance hall girls with a heart of gold, and back to Pratchett. But it's what do they do? How do they live there? Because not everything is your neon-soaked day job, night job. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I love living in that downtime world. Those places need to exist and to help you remind what you're telling the story for, and having places to fight for and people to fight for and what they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. You may not be able to save the world. You probably can't save the world, but maybe you can make your bit of it less shit.
Exactly. So. Well, thank you so much, Linda. It's been such a treat having you on the sofa. We'll have to have you back at some point because this has been so fantastic.
No, it's been a joy. I was so nervous. I'm glad you enjoyed. I'm glad you had a good time as well.
Oh,
I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
I'm glad. I'm so glad. I'm sorry you were nervous. I'm so glad that it was pleasurable. We will definitely have to have you back, because this was just.
Yep.
I said, I could talk to you for hours. So we'll say goodbye. Do you catch
Thank you.
Linda at Twitch and YouTube at Buttercup?
Yep.
And Ko-Fi, is that also at Ko-Fi too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I am Druttercup in most places. Yep.
Uh,
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute blast.
it's been great. Thank you, Linda. And
Okay.
to the audience, we will see you guys next week. Either talking about the DLC or more Night City 2045. We'll see how it goes. Until then, meow for now.
Bye-bye.